Now, Twitter isn't a place you go to have fun. It's not a place where you go if you want to have normal discussions. Twitter is a place that destroys your IQ by 15 points every time you go. But you see, that's not it. Not this time around. No, it's not about that. Many people on the internet have a weird way of understanding Warhammer in general. They don't really get Warhammer and they make up problems where there technically isn't anything. But let's get there. Let's look at Frostfire Flame. Now, I recommend you follow Frostfire Flame because, of course, she's a good chick. She knows her lore, she knows Warhammer, and, she's pretty cool. She says, I would rather see 40k and all my other favorite franchises, /IPs, die 1,000 deaths than Koto and pander to the regressive left and the mind rot they carry with them. Now, it might already be inflammatory to some people, and it's understandable. The words are, well, the choice of words is rather more volcanic, more impulsive there. And you know what? I can't say I'm not, part of the problem when it comes to picking words like that, because you know what, it's true. That's how it is. Sometimes that's how you would see things, rather than see it transform into Star Trek or Doctor Who. Good joke. Or even worse, Star Wars. Now that's bottom of the barrel. I think it's better to see them rot. It's better to see franchises rot. And here we have Discourse Minis. For those of you that don't know, Discourse Minis has a YouTube channel with a pretty decent following, clearly bigger than mine, and she does, she complains about FOMO boxes, from what I've seen, and doesn't have anything good to say about Warhammer, or something like that. Like, I tried to just scroll through her channel, and I just didn't find anything that interesting. Compared to the Outer Circle, at least the Outer Circle sometimes has good things to say about the Horus Heresy, which is his main deal. But the Discourse Minis says the following. This thing that I've censored with the image of Pluto, nice, genuinely one of the weird outcomes of creating hobbies around IPs instead of actual activities. Most of these people haven't played a single wargame or painted a miniature. They probably watched some 40k lore, and now it's central to their identity. Bizarre. Now, this is a little bit of an accusation, and it comes down to the elitist mindset of having miniatures, and that's somehow giving you more say in the community and more power than somebody that doesn't have miniatures in the first place. The problem comes that, I like saying this because it's true, you own minis because you're a fan. You are not a fan because you own minis. Now, Discourse Minis' whole argument revolves around the idea of a hobby. Warhammer as a hobby being a wargaming hobby. And, that makes sense when it comes to certain games that are not that well explored lore-wise. Certain games that aren't really that well developed and they're just there to be played. But you see, that's the thing. Warhammer isn't just a war game. That's the most important aspect of it, if you think about it. It's not just a war game. It's not the wargaming hobby when you refer to Warhammer, because Warhammer is its own thing. It's a multimedia hobby. Warhammer itself, you have books, you have games, you have animations. A movie that I really like, The Ultramarines, Henry Cavill working on a show with Amazon. It's more than just a war game. It's way more complex than that. And there are many ways to enjoy the hobby. Now, of course, even Games Workshop agrees with this statement, because they say there are multiple ways to enjoy it, from reading, shows, and everything along the lines. And that's the truth of it. You can enjoy Warhammer in many different ways, and it's okay. Because, at the end of the day, Games Workshop, charges a lot for that plastic. A lot. The point where, if somebody doesn't want to buy miniatures because they're too expensive and they would rather play a video game or read books. You know, that's understandable. That's not only is it encouraged, but I understand why somebody would do that. Think about it like this. You're never gonna get an army for the price of Rogue Trader. Okay, the game Rogue Trader. You might technically, but no, you won't. You could try and eBay it, but even that's gonna be a little more expensive. At the end of the day, miniatures will never be as cheap as video games, as books, so that you can get many hours of enjoyment. You see, that's the problem. Discourse Mini sees this as just the wargaming hobby and sees Warhammer as just wargaming. It just resumes to wargaming. The end result of Warhammer's existence is wargaming. But that is false. That is, oh boy, that is so false. Because Warhammer is more than just miniatures and painting and wargaming. Now you can see that in this picture right here, we have a few things that are, no, I need to put my character here. No. We have 3 things that are highlighted as being very okay to partake into the Warhammer hobby: reading, games, and watching. And this is a problem you'll see in the future. What I'm referring to right now is the whole idea of the war game being the central part of Warhammer 40k, and the story and lore being just fluff. It's just fluff whether you want to change it, but that's a different aspect. You will see this many times, and it's always brought up whenever you make a counter argument for lore or other stuff like that. They will always, and when I mean they, I refer to a certain category of Twitter freaks, they will always ask for your miniatures. You see, gatekeepers don't like gatekeeping. They think it's very horrible, and you should be able to demand the Games Workshop to change Warhammer any way they see fit. Well, not Games Workshop, the way the Twitter freaks see fit. If they want to put, I don't know, female space marines, put them in. They are not against gatekeeping with miniatures. The more elitist part, shall we say, the part of gatekeeping that really affects people and kind of hurts when you think about it. They're all for that gatekeeping. Oh, you don't have miniatures, you don't have any say in this discussion. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter how many books you read. It doesn't matter that Games Workshop spent like 30, 40 something years telling us no. You not having miniatures is enough to disqualify your opinion. Much in the same way Discourse Minis tries to act with Crossfire Flame right here. And that's very wrong. And it's not only because this kind of gatekeeping sucks and it's counterproductive to the growth of the hobby. The hobby will not grow because you put, I don't know, black female space marines in the ultramarines. The hobby will grow because of the price of the hobby. And since Warhammer does something a little bit more interesting, where it's not only the price of miniatures, but also the lore part and the game part, you can understand that Warhammer will grow because of those, not in spite of them. And that's an important mentality that I think these people have. They see everything else that's not that point as existing just to spite them, to spite the miniatures. For these people, the miniatures and the game is the end-all, be-all of Warhammer. Like Warhammer is some random Napoleonic war game. That was weird. Weird Napoleonic war game, whatever. Anyway, they treat it like that when, in fact, Warhammer is so much more. And what brings many people to Warhammer that nobody seems to understand this, especially not people like Discourse Mini, is the lore. It's the story. Arch Warhammer has done more for the hobby of Warhammer than others have by just painting. And I say this because many people got into the hobby. They might end up hating Arch along the lines, but it doesn't matter. They got into the hobby because of the lore, and the lore is the building blocks of this. Miniatures might be important, but they're not the end-all, be-all. Again, I refer to what I said in the beginning of this video. You own miniatures because you are a fan. You're not a fan because you own miniatures. Warhammer is more than just a war game. And these things, the games, it's the lore, it's the books, it's the shows that are building up an audience and a fan base for Warhammer 40k or fantasy. Much in the same way Lord of the Rings is a multimedia hobby. And you can really call it that because you have video games, you have movies, you have the classic books. I'm not gonna mention Rings of Power. Screw that, that's not part of anything. Again, these things exist and they're more than just that. Lord of the Rings is more than just the miniature war game, which is pretty fun. The same way Warhammer is more than just, the tabletop game. And I guess this can apply to other things such as Star Wars or D&D, or the list can go on. At the end of the day, what I want people to really leave this video with is the idea that miniatures, at the end of the day, don't matter. If they matter so much, Games Workshop would have never tried to branch out in different paths. It would just been happy to just pump out miniatures at an expensive price and then be done with it. But they're not, because there are better markets and they understand, despite being greedy, that their name, Warhammer, is a hobby in itself, not though related to wargaming. It's not wargaming at the end of the day. If the only wargame you play is Warhammer, at the end of the day, you're a Warhammer hobbyist, not just a random hobbyist. I guess that's it. Hope you enjoy this.